It is my great pleasure to welcome John Tisch to speak to our class on leadership and active citizenship. And I was realizing, John, that I should actually be saying welcome back, because the first incarnation of this class actually predated the creation of Tisch College. And you were kind enough to speak on that occasion, which was in the, late 1990s. I don't know the precise year. John Tisch is an alum, class of 76. He's been a strong advocate of the college that now bears his name from the very start of the planning process. And we were chatting earlier over lunch. I recall vividly the first discussion, one of the when we were just beginning to talk about creating the college, the then president of Tufts, John DiBiagio, knew that in order to succeed with this effort, we needed very strong, enthusiastic backing of the trustees, and that an important step in garnering that support would be to thoroughly involve them in the process of vetting and critiquing the idea. And in the very first of those discussions was, I think, in 1998. And after the president and Brian O'Connell's presentation, because this influenced my professional life so much, I have a, sometimes you really remember occasions, and I have quite a crisp memory of this exchange. The first person to speak after that was John Tisch. And John both raised his hand to be recognized by the board chair, but then he also stood up. And he said, "This is exactly what I want my alma mater to do. This is not only a smart thing for Tufts to do institutionally, it's the right thing to do. And I'll do everything I can to make it happen." And we are forever in your debt for that early support, because John's enthusiastic backing was important, both because of his standing within the board and his strength of support, of course, influenced other trustees. John Tisch is, I'm going to give a quick introduction so that we don't eat into the time that you have with him. Is co-chairman of the board of Lowe's Corporation and is chairman and CEO of Lowe's Hotels. As you'll hear shortly, he's a champion of corporate responsibility. One key example of that, but it's one of many, is his major role both within New York and nationally in responding to 9/11 and rebuilding the city, but also the national economy after 9/11. He's author of 2 best-selling books. You have read one of them. The second one, also with a terrific title, is called "Chocolates on the Pillow Aren't Enough." We didn't assign that one in this class.
Not as relevant.
Optional reading going forward. And John, I hope you'll tell us a bit about your third
Absolutely.
book, now Impressed, because it's so directly on the topic of this class. John will make an opening presentation followed by Q&A and discussion. And please remind me which of you are the designated discussion initiators, Loie and Stephen. So they get first dibs in articulating questions. Please.
If I answer the question right, do I get some sushi? It looks good.
Please join me in welcoming Tufts alum John Tisch.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. You bring up the moment that Tisch College was birthed at that board meeting, and it'll now be 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, where we stood outside here and dedicated Tisch College. And I referenced during the few moments that I had to speak at the dedication, that particular board meeting, and Professor Hollister's input in the creation of what is today Tisch College. And as I said to some of you who were here for lunch and now to the larger audience, it really is extremely rewarding to be able to come back here now, a few years into what has become known as the leading college vehicle for educating the future leaders of our country and the world about being an active citizen. And the satisfaction that I have been able to get from watching you and others who have graduated, will graduate, who don't even know that they're coming to Tufts yet, the immense satisfaction of watching the program evolve and hearing what's on your minds and seeing this moment in time where the spirit of Tisch College is needed more than ever is immensely gratifying. And I mention the spirit because we are at a moment in time where, even though this discussion started some 13 years ago, we're at a moment in time, both politically and economically, where what you're learning here is going to be more important than ever. It's a moment in time politically because I think we finally have an administration in place that is geared towards the conversation of how important civic engagement is. And it's important economically because obviously we as a nation and as a part of the world environment face enormous economic challenges, some of which can be dealt with through more and engaged active citizens. So this is a theme that I have thought about for a long time. When I was a student here many, many years ago, we didn't have a forum such as this. We did have the X College, and I graduated in 1976. And I will tell you that even though that was now 33 years ago, the vehicle of the X College was vitally important to me. When I was a senior, I decided that I wanted to try my hand at the early parts of a career. So during my senior year at Tufts, I worked at WBZ over in Brookline, and I spent my senior year there, and I walked into the institution, to the station. I didn't have any experience. I didn't know basically what a camera was, and so they trained me. I was an intern there, and then when I graduated from Tufts in June of '76, they offered me a job, and I spent the next 3.5 years working at WBZ. So the notion of pursuing your interest has always been one that I have found exciting about Tufts because the environment allows you to do that. Now, here we are some 33 years later that you now can pursue your interests, but also at the same time understand your responsibility. And that sort of is the core of the kinds of discussions that I've been trying to stimulate over the past 10 years. The opportunity to write a couple books to discuss these themes and broaden the number of individuals and groups that get to hear my ideas has been also very rewarding. The Power of We, which was my first book, grew out of a speech that I had been giving when I would travel around the country. I am the former chair of a group called the American Hotel and Lodging Association, which brings together all the main hotel companies, big and small, the Marriotts and the Starwoods and the Intercontinentals, and even the small independent hotels. In the year that you're the chair, and this is now, I guess, about 15 years ago, you have to travel and meet the individual state associations, and you need a theme. And the theme that I had come up with 15 years ago was the notion of partnerships. And just 2 seconds on the book, when here we are now, something like 10 years later, I was having lunch with another Tufts graduate, somebody who had graduated the year before me, who was a literary agent, who still is a literary agent in New York. And he said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Well, I've been working at Lowe's Hotels, but I really like to pursue the ideas of this overriding theme of partnerships, about putting aside your individual concerns and working towards the greater good." And this was Jane Pauley's agent, and he was Lou Dobbs' agent, and and Kitty Kelly, who writes about famous people. So this guy has the chops. He's one of the top literary agents. And he looks at me, he said, "There's a book in this." I said, I can't write a book. He said, "Let me make a deal with you." He said, "I'll find you a co-writer. I'll introduce you to some people. You interview them. You see who you're comfortable with. And then we'll take it from there." So 2 or 3 months went by. I met a handful of people. Ended up with Carl Weber, who is still with me. And I'll tell you about my third book in a few moments. And after that, we wrote a sample chapter and a table of contents. And we gave an overview of what the book was about. And 3 months later, we had a book deal. And then the book came out about 5 years ago. And the opportunities have arisen from the book coming out, which led to the second book, which has led to many speeches. And now I also have a TV show where I get to interview CEOs about their philosophy on many topics, one of which is civic engagement. And so it all started back, long story, at Tufts. And the parallel tracks of my hope and desire to educate more people about how important this role is, how important active citizens are, while also watching the birth of Tisch College and taking what people like Brian O'Connell, who was the board member that first brought this up, and Professor Hollister and all of his colleagues, to a point where now Tisch College is viewed as probably the preeminent distributor of ideas and concepts as it relates to this theme. So it all has come sort of full circle, but it's also all very rewarding. I refer to the book often because I think it gives a good discussion point, a good starting off point for ideas that hopefully you're all thinking about. And that's this whole notion of success. What does success mean? How do you achieve success? And inherent in that success, what is your responsibility? So as I mentioned, the theme of the power of we is about understanding partnerships. It's about understanding that you can't be all things to all people, that you will leave this institution with a certain amount of knowledge. You will leave with being good at something. Everybody is good at something. And you will go into the workforce, or you will go into the pro bono world when you get your diploma, and you will try to achieve personal success, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a good job, if that's what you choose. There's certainly nothing wrong with wanting to take a couple of years and go into the world of pro bono organizations, of NGOs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But incumbent and inherent in your success is the responsibility that you have to others to help them achieve that same goal. So the book was written in an environment a couple of years ago, and the book has been out about 5 years, so we started about 6 or 7 years ago, where I sensed that we needed to go from a decade of me to a decade of we, of once again putting aside your individual concerns and working together towards the greater good. That theme of we is probably more important now than it was 6 years ago for some of the reasons that we've talked about and a lot of the reasons that you're keenly aware of. The lack of resources that are being offered by government, the lack of resources that are being offered by the private sector to support community-based organizations. So this sensibility is even more important. Now, in the book, we looked at a variety of constituencies that you need to partner with, and I'm going to go through them very quickly. Just want to give you a sense of it. I got a couple of videos for you, and then talk about the third book, and then open it up to your questions. But these are important themes as you go through your education, and as some of you are seniors, I know, as you look at what's going to happen after May of 2010, or May of 2011, or May of 2012. First and foremost, the group that we talk about because they drive any business or they drive any organization is that you have customers. And they may be called clients, they may be called customers, they may be called accounts. But you have a product no matter what you do, and either you're selling to somebody or you're helping somebody. And you can't have any organization unless you take your product or your service and offer it to somebody else. So the customer that you're dealing with, the client that you're dealing with, the person who's coming to your organization for assistance is vitally important. And it's very incumbent for you to understand what their expectations are. To break through all the clutter, and this is what the second book talked about, which is more on marketing and selling, but to break through the noise, to break through all of the distractions, to break through what is being offered by your competitor, and articulate a vision of why this person, man or woman, wants to do business with you in the first place, or is coming to this organization for assistance. So it really is important to go to the other side and see what your customers are seeing. Now, you can clearly understand that in my business, which is the lodging industry. We need people to stay in our hotels, and we need them to pay us to sleep in the room, and we need them to pay us for breakfast in the morning, and if they're having a meeting, to pay us for banquets, and that's how we create a business. And granted, we are a for-profit business, but the flip side of that is that I've got 7,000 people that get a paycheck every other week because we have a business. And through that paycheck, they're able to take care of their own families and send their own kids to school. So understanding the customer, once again, in my case, is vitally important. Understanding why somebody is staying in one of our hotels is essential to our success. Why are they staying with us and not staying at one of our competitors? We need to know that. Why would they maybe stay with us? If there was a problem, then they're not going to come back to us. The most expensive proposition out there in our industry is getting somebody to try you once. If they try your hotel and they like it, it doesn't really cost you anything for them to come back. But the trick is to create an environment where they come, they are able to accomplish their goals. And remember that people are traveling for a whole host of reasons. They're traveling on a business trip. They're going to attend a convention, a conference, a seminar. They're traveling by themselves. They're traveling with their significant other. They're traveling with their families. There are all kinds of reasons that people get on an airplane, get in a train, get in their car, and go somewhere, and then stay in a hotel. We need to understand that. Now, we are a fairly small player. We are a very small player when you look at the biggest names in the industry. We only have 18 hotels. We have a 19th hotel under construction in Atlanta. We have 17 in this country. We have 2 up in Canada. Look at a company like Marriott, and I was with Bill Marriott giving an award on Tuesday night, so I was reminded of the numbers. But Marriott has 3,200 hotels around the world. We have 18. Intercontinental, which is the largest hotel company in terms of rooms, has something like 4,000 hotels. The ones that we compete with on a regular basis, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, some of the Starwood products, these are very big companies. But we know who our customers are, and we'll get into coworkers in a second. And as you, once again, I know I come from a business background, but believe me when I tell you this is also vitally important in the world that some of you may enter, which is the pro bono world, that a lot of times things change, but they don't really change. And I'll give you the hotel version of that. The business of hotels has changed dramatically since the first person paid somebody to stay in a hotel and sleep on a bed 1,000 years ago. And the business of hotels means that we are a very active industry. We're followed by Wall Street. Some of the wealthiest people on the planet own hotels because they look at it as a good form of investment. Bill Gates was part of the group that took Four Seasons private last year. Michael Dell, who made a few bucks making computers, owns 4 Four Seasons hotels. Ty Warner, who started Beanie Babies, owns the Four Seasons on 57th Street and owns the Four Seasons in Santa Barbara. So these are people who have significant wealth who now invest in hotels. So there's a lot of interest in hotels. Many people travel, they stay in hotels, they have their own experiences. You only have to stay in a hotel once and you think that you're an expert, and everybody tells us their opinion, so we're used to getting that feedback immediately. So the business of hotels has changed a lot. What hasn't changed at all is the hotel business. And that's built on hospitality and the notion of taking care of people, of anticipating what their needs are and what their goals are for coming to stay at your hotel. And that's a tough business, but it hasn't changed, once again, since minute one. People want to be respected. They want to be thanked for their business. They want to get value for what they're doing. And this is true in any business. You pay a price for a product or a service, you want value. If you don't get it, you're going somewhere else. When you check out of a hotel, you get your bill, you immediately do a mental calculation. Did I get value for what I paid this particular hotel? And if the answer is no, you're going to go someplace else. So that gives you a sense of how you need to work and understand what your customers want, what your clients want. That's the first partnership. Now, oftentimes, to satisfy the first partnership, you really have to understand the second partnership, and that's with your coworkers. When you get to a place in business, when you graduate from here, or you may see it now in your summer jobs, your summer engagements, as I said earlier, you can't do it all by yourself. Absolutely impossible. I have interviewed 31 of the top CEOs in this country for my TV show. And to a person, to a man and a woman, they say during the interview that they didn't get to this place by themselves. You cannot be singular in this regard. So that means you have to depend on others to assist you in the process of delivering a product or delivering a service. So you have to depend on your coworkers. Now, as some of you may know, I grew up in the hotel business. I've been doing this a long time. It's where my family started. We're in a bunch of different businesses now, but our roots are in lodging, going back to the late 40s in New Jersey when we started in the hotel business. And my family started with very little in Brooklyn, New York. And I am very fortunate that through hard work and discipline, they got to a place that now my cousins and I are trying to emulate their success and keep the corporation going. But being that I am now almost 56 years old, I've worked in hotels since I was about 2 years old. And I know every job, I have worked every job. I have been a member of the bell staff, I have made beds, I have waited on tables. But when you get to higher levels in management, you know, it's the old cliche, the air gets a little thin up there. It's true. And you get separated from what goes on a daily basis, you start to forget how important the bottom of the pyramid is because you're at the top of the pyramid. So I had an opportunity a couple years ago to be reminded of how vital these people are. In my case, there are 7,000 people, as I mentioned, who are depending on us to provide them with a good living. But I didn't know exactly what they did because I was separated, because as a CEO, you deal with mainly your colleagues. So about 5 years ago, we got a call from the producers at the Learning Channel. And they said that they're bringing over to the States a show that was airing on BBC in the United Kingdom. And the show over there was called Back to the Floor. The premise of the show was actually quite simple. What they would do is they would take a CEO, they would put them back in entry-level positions in their company, they would watch them get trained by an individual man or woman who does that job now, and then the CEO would have to go out and do that job with an unsuspecting public and unsuspecting customer base. And they said, we're bringing the show to the States, and we would like you to be the first CEO that we profile on, as they call it in this country, Now Who's Boss. Now, having spent my 3.5 years at WBZ and knowing a little bit about TV and the mass appeal of a cable channel that is bi-coastal, and with our small advertising and marketing budgets, I'm thinking to myself, well, if nothing else, we get an hour of national TV where people will learn more a little bit about what we stand for at Lowe's Hotels. And ultimately, hopefully, I'll learn something about these roles. So we agreed to do it. We shot the show at our property, some of you may have been there, called Lowe's Miami Beach Hotel, which is in the heart of South Beach, 800-room hotel that's been open about 11 years. I went down there for the shoot, and I walk into my room, and there facing me are 9 uniforms of jobs that I'm going to have to do over the next 3 days. There is a bellman's uniform, there's a housekeeper's uniform, engineering, laundry, short order cook, pool attendant, all 9 jobs I've got to do with cameras over the next 3 days. I'm going to show you a little clip of that experience, and then we'll talk about it on the other side, and I'll tell you how rewarding it was. I hope I fit in.
Hotel mogul Jonathan Tisch is going from mover and shaker to mopper and duster.
How you all doing? Whoa!
In a normal week, John is the CEO of the upscale Lowe's hotel chain. But this week, he's leaving the comfort of his New York office for a week in the trenches.
I guess I start working. Look at all those uniforms. Kitchen cook, engineer, bellman. A little scary.
Belden's my first day, so I'll take it easy on you, don't worry. Keep it in the middle if you can. Checking in? This could take an hour or two. You don't mind, do you?
Great.
Okay. They've accepted you. You paid your bill this month? After today, I may not be back in the business. Morning room service. Ow. Mr. Martinez? Oh, Miss Martinez. Good morning. How are you? Side of bacon. They don't give you a lot of room on these trays. I'm going to have to talk to the people that run the hotel. Hi, it's John from housekeeping. They left 2 cents.
Hey, that's your tip.
Hey, that's my tip. We'll put them in.
You can spray it around the base also. Some of our guests do miss.
That's more information than I needed, Sarah.
Nothing on the floor.
We will.
No.
Oh, they're dirty. Come on.
You left half of yours out.
Well, you know.
I am so tired.
12 more rooms to do? Oh my God. I am really sweating. Okay.
And then the supervisors needs to check.
I gotta check my work?
Yes, sir.
I'm supposed to pick up. Got the water in the iron. All the lights. It's not done. It's not clean.
On to the next room. What I've learned in the last couple of days is that not only is there an emotional commitment, but there also is a physical aspect. Making the bed, cooking where there's tremendous heat, lifting, moving things. I never really understood the physical commitment that individuals have to make in addition to the emotional commitment. I'll tell you, after doing your job yesterday, I have so much respect for what all of you ladies do. And now I know what all this stuff does.
You get a sense of what I did for a couple days. And you may ask yourself, why did I do it? I did it because I wanted to be reminded that even though I can sit in my office on 61st Street and Madison Avenue and make all the decisions I want about the future of this company with my senior colleagues, it's meaningless. It has no meaning whatsoever without the people that you saw in that video. The people who every day are taking bags to the rooms, who are making the beds. These housekeepers, and they are mainly women, although we do have some male housekeepers, are making up 13, 14, in some cases 15 rooms a day. It is unglamorous. It is physically challenging, and we as an industry have just made it a bit more challenging because we all now have our heavenly beds and we all have duvets that are this thick, and we're doing that to get more people to stay with us, but that means more work for our housekeepers. And we are nothing without these people. And when you get to a position, and once again, maybe some of you do it now if you've got jobs that work through the school year or summer positions, I am telling you, if you don't understand how important it is to surround yourself with people that you can help to get to that level of success, you're not going to make it yourself. So through this experience, I learned or relearned about hard work and dedication and pride. Sarah, the woman that was teaching me how to be a housekeeper, in one of the scenes that you didn't see here, they give me this purple goop that all of our housekeepers have to use to clean the shower stalls, and I'm cleaning with it. And I said at one point, Sarah, you can finger paint with this stuff. And she looks at me and she says, John, you have to find the joy in everything that you do. And for people who are in these difficult tasks, to have a moment where they can find some joy is very important. And when you get to a position of senior management, it's going to be incumbent upon you to help them get to that place where even though these jobs are tough, they can find the joy in what they do. There was a moment when the filming started and I got on my first uniform, and first job I remember was as a banquet server. And so I'm wearing the uniform and I get into an elevator with two colleagues of mine from Lowe's Hotels, my former chief of staff who was a Tufts graduate, and a woman who does our public relations. And I get into the elevator, all three of us get in the elevator, a gentleman walks in, he's wearing a badge, so obviously we figured out that he was attending a meeting there. And he looks and makes eye contact with Emily, who does our public relations. And then he looks and made eye contact with Jeffrey, who is my former chief of staff. But he wouldn't make eye contact with me because I was wearing a uniform. Now, how do you think you would feel in that situation? That's the place you have to get to as a coworker and eventually as a leader of an organization, to continually put yourself in somebody else's position, to understand how important it is to work together and create this partnership with coworkers. The next group that we talk about is, and I'm taking a little bit out of order because I want to save community for the end. Normally I talk about community next, but let me talk about partnering with competitors. And those of you that read the book, and I guess all of you did, you noticed that I talk about this a little bit. And people raise their eyebrows on this one. They say, well, why would you want to partner with a competitor? In my case, why would you want to do anything with somebody from Hyatt or Four Seasons or Westin or another Starwood brand? The reality is that there are so many issues that we now have to deal with in terms of large challenges that come down the pike at us who run businesses or who run community-based organizations, that more can be accomplished by partnering with your competitor on certain issues. I will give you the hotel example or the travel industry example first. For years and years and years, I have been working to make travel and tourism a vehicle for economic development in this country. And by that I mean the opportunity to still create jobs and pay billions of dollars in taxes, and also create an environment where people have good jobs, good paying jobs. And so through that, I've chaired a couple of organizations. I started a group called the Travel Business Roundtable, which represented airlines and hotels, and I did that for 15 years and then merged that into another industry group. So I now serve as chairman emeritus of a group called the United States Travel Association. And these groups are very good vehicles for partnering with your competitors. To sit at a table with the president or the CEO of Hyatt or the CEO of Starwood to talk about policy is a good thing, even though we are competitors. In the spring, there was a lot of rhetoric coming out of our nation's capital about how people shouldn't be traveling, companies, especially TARP recipient firms, shouldn't be holding meetings. And then the president, who I respect and admire, made an offhanded comment about Las Vegas. He was doing a town hall forum and made a comment about people having meetings in Las Vegas. Well, the little business that they had evaporated. Our business as an industry dried up because of all this rhetoric coming out of D.C. So we had to fight back. We had to say that meetings mean business. People coming together for a gathering means that we're going to be able to hire more wait staff, that the person who serves the meal is going to have a job, that the person who puts the flowers on the table is going to have a job. If meetings get canceled, then we have to lay off some of our employees. I'm not going to lose my job, but sadly, just due to the economics, the housekeepers and the bell staff are going to lose their jobs. So we gathered in Washington, and we actually had a meeting with the president. And we sat in the White House, and this was the first time that any travel industry body had such an extended FaceTime with the President of the United States. We didn't know he was going to be there. He was supposed to just stick his head in, as it was reported to us. He came into the room and ended up staying for a half hour. And during that time, we were able to articulate our vision for a strong travel and tourism industry, which is our vision for a strong United States of America. And I was partnering with my competitors to deliver that message. The president walked out of the room. He turned around before he left the Jefferson room and said, "This has been a very helpful session. And if you want to talk about this meeting to the press and talk about the travel industry and how you came to educate me, you have my permission." Next day, his press secretary made a statement about travel and tourism, how important it is to this country. That gives you an example of how you can accomplish a goal by putting aside your individual concerns and working together. In this case, we were partnering with our competitors. And as you work in your summer jobs or anything that you do, think about partnering with your competitors. We had an example just last week. President Bacow and Professor Hollister were in New York for a gathering of universities from around the world and heads of foundations, the Walmart Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, some of the biggest foundations on this planet, and a few people from the private sector. And here, Tufts, Tisch College, was at the lead of a discussion about what's going on here can be done on a global basis. The ideas were incubated here at Tisch College, and through what's called the Talwa Network, there are now the opportunities out there to discuss this on a global basis. So the president of Georgetown was there, alongside of Larry Bacow, the president of Tufts. In some regard, maybe they're competitors. Maybe this time of year, as the applications start flowing, they're fighting for the same kids. They're fighting for the next year's freshman class. But here, they put aside their individual concerns to work towards the goal of spreading what the philosophy of Tisch College is on a global basis. That's how important it is to partner with your competitor. Another example is government. How do you partner with government? And very briefly, government is always going to be in your life, probably even more so. And when you see what comes out of Washington or other national capitals around the world, you get a sense of, yes, there are taxes and rules and regulations, and government can be a pain in the butt. But the reality is, it's in all of our best interest to find ways to partner with government. They are all-encompassing. They are massive. They lay down the law in many instances. But if you can find ways to come up with issues that are important, and many NGOs, just due to their name, and organizations that are community-based have to find ways to partner with government, just because that's where the capital comes from. And also, as I said, they set the rules and the regulations. We as an industry are working on some policy right now where we've got senators and members of the House that are supporting us. And so that's partnering with the government. Once again, I'm saving community for last. The final group that we talk about is this notion of understanding your fiscal responsibility to any organization that you're involved in. Now, I am co-chairman of the board of a public company, and meaning that we report to a board of directors, and in essence, we report to the shareholders. Granted, our family may control about 30% of the common shares of this corporation, but we still report to somebody. Everybody reports to somebody, which is a good thing, because it sets up the whole notion of keeping an eye on the operation. And if you're in a for-profit business, your goal is to be as profitable as you can while assisting others. If you're working in the nonprofit world, you still have to be fiscally responsible because the dollars are scarce. So understanding how important it is to stick to a budget, to understand what you can do in terms of the financial parameters that are set out is vital. Now let me get to this whole notion of community, because that is the last group that we talk about. It came up in the lunch that I had the opportunity to meet with some of you, and somebody asked the question, so how long have you been an active citizen? Where did this notion come from in your background? And as I explained a couple hours ago, it's been something that I've had ingrained, beat into me in a nice way, not beat physically into me, but beat emotionally into me since I was 2 years old. It's just the way that we were raised in this family, the fact that my father and uncle were both children of depression, that the depression era, they were not depressed, although at times they might have been, the depression era, and same thing with my mother and my aunt. So they grew up in an environment where they took a little bit of what was given to them, which wasn't much. They used hard work, determination, they took some chances, and they took this existence that started in Brooklyn, New York, to today what is Lowe's Corporation with assets of about $80 billion, and we have revenues on an annual basis of about $20 billion, and we're in 5 different businesses. And there wasn't a moment in this journey that took them from Brooklyn to New York to building one of the largest corporations on the planet that they didn't show that they cared about others. So this notion of community is one that I've lived with my entire life. And fortunately, for my brother and sister, and my brother is a Tufts graduate, as some of you may know, and for my 4 cousins, we have now embraced this notion in our lives. I've been able to do it on a more public level between the books and speeches and the TV show, but everybody in this family has shown their commitment to the community. It is the genesis, it is the core, it is the theme of Tisch College. And we at Lowe's Hotels showed it early on in terms of a commitment to the community. We started 15 years ago something called the Lowe's Hotels Good Neighbor Policy, and very simply it's a 10-point plan where there's food left over from banquets, we give it to food banks. We renovate a hotel, we give armoires and beds to homeless shelters. And issue after issue, we constantly try to show that we care about the community. What we're now seeing, as I started, is this moment in time where this is more important than ever. And the fact that you are taking a class with the words leadership and active citizens in the title of the class shows that you are interested in this issue. The next book will be out in May. The book is based on the themes of Tisch College. The book is called Citizen U, ... Doing Your Part to Change the World. And I'm very excited because for this book, we're switching publishers. My first two books were done by Wiley. This one we're switching to Crown, which is owned by Random House, so it's one of the big three. The book is completed. It's been handed in. My co-writer did a fabulous job of taking the ideas that we believe in, and he's interviewed such stalwarts as Professor Hollister, who will show up in the book, and other people from Tisch College. And what we're going to try to do is capture this moment in time where this notion of active citizenship refers to everybody. It's just the way that you need to lead your life. And that's the theme of the book. And we profile a lot of different groups. We profile a lot of different organizations. We go from different countries to show what can be done. There's one profile of a guy by the name of Scott Harrison. I'm going to show you a little video that he did. But we spent a couple pages talking about Scott, just to give you an example of the kinds of profiles and how people's lives change while they're helping others, while they're changing the lives of others. Scott, I think today is 33, so about 5 or 6 years ago, he was in New York and he didn't have a great relationship with his family, and his mother had been ill for much of her life. And he ended up becoming a nightclub impresario, and his world would go from 10 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, and he was dating models, and he was watching people pay $350 to buy a table and dance on the table and all these investment banker types. And he decided that he wasn't really happy with his life. Yes, he was making a lot of money and he was dating models, and he would look in the mirror and go, so what? I'm not getting any satisfaction. And so he had heard about a group called Mercy Ships, which are these ships that travel around the world and help people. And he worked with them for a little bit, and he went to NYU Film School, and so he had a little bit of an entertainment background. And then he realized and had come to understand the situation in many, many underdeveloped countries in the world is that people don't even have access to clean water. So he started a group called Charity, Water, or colon, it should be, Charity, Water. And I'm going to hear you tell his story, but here's one young man who was dissatisfied with what he perceived as a financially successful but empty life, who did something to change himself and change the world. And now millions and millions of people have access to clean water because he has used this network of uber cool people, as they might have been described years back, to now do something important. And one person touches somebody else and touches somebody else. Let's see the story about Scott Harrison.
It all started with a birthday party. It started 3 years ago in September. It was a simple idea then, and it's a simple idea now. You see, there were 1 billion people living in our world that didn't have something they needed. Something I'd always taken for granted. Something I'd never gone without. Clean drinking water. So we started an organization to help them. It was called Charity Water. Now these 1 billion people, they got their water from awful places, and it made them sick. From ponds, from muddy rivers and dry riverbeds, sometimes from puddles in the ground. Millions of kids and their moms walked hours and hours each day to get at this dirty water. But there was good news, you see. There were ways to help them. There were solutions that could help those 1 billion people get clean water. Solutions like digging and drilling wells, protecting mountain springs, and catching the rainwater. So full of faith, we just started. We didn't have any money. We didn't even have an office. We just started with a birthday party. I was turning 31, so I asked my friends to come to a party and give $20 instead of gifts for my birthday. 700 people came. We took all the money raised that night to a refugee camp in Uganda and funded 6 wells there. My birthday party in New York changed lives in Uganda. We kept going. More people joined me. We found a cheap office to work out of, and we fixed it up. We built an outdoor exhibition and put dirty water in tanks, showing people what it would look like if they had to drink from our rivers and our ponds. We built a website, and we sold things like $20 e-cards and $20 bottles of water. We created ad campaigns and got free space to show them. We made commercials that ran on TV and across the web. We took photos of the people we served in Africa and shared their stories in galleries and theaters across the country. Everything we did seemed to work. Kids raised money, churches raised money, schools raised money. Retailers gave up windows to spread awareness and sold clothes to raise money. We got help online from our friends at Facebook, YouTube, Google, and Twitter. Even newspapers, magazines, and television networks told our story.
Access to clean drinking water, and I'm taking you to the top now.
But every September, we did something really special. And when Charity Water turned 1 year old, I gave up my birthday again, but this time asked people to donate $32 for my 32nd birthday. And this time, we asked others to join me. September babies from around the world gave up their birthdays, and together we raised $150,000 to bring water to hospitals and schools in Kenya. And last year, even more people joined, and we got bigger results. The idea spread around the world, and the September birthday campaign raised almost $1 million for Ethiopia. Over 50,000 people there got clean water to drink. Now, we've gotten an awful lot done in 3 years. We've now raised more than $10 million, which means 721,000 people in 15 countries will get clean and safe water to drink. We have helped almost 1 million people. Almost. So this September, we want your help getting there. We'll ask you to give up your September birthdays again, but we'll keep going into October, November, April, and May. And not just your birthdays this time. You can give up gifts for your weddings and anniversaries. You can run marathons, climb mountains, jump out of planes, all to build wells and give people clean water. I invite you to fight alongside us. Help us help 1 million people, and then keep going. We will not stop until every single person on the planet has clean and safe water to drink. Here's how you can help.
Now, my sense is that each of you could be the next Scott Harrison. And your taking this class at this university at this time is vitally important. I can't tell you what you're going to do. You probably don't know what you're going to do. I remember at lunch an hour or so ago, I asked some of the seniors what they're going to do. They don't have an answer, nor do they have to have an answer. The only answer that you need is that when you leave here in May of whatever year it's going to be, that you understand that you have to do something. That you can go out and get a job, and you can be the next Warren Buffett, you can be the next Scott Harrison. But as you take that journey, you've got to do something to help somebody else. I ended the chapter on Scott Harrison. I'm going to read this paragraph, and once again, the book will be out in May. Not everybody who chooses to become involved in the new activism will find his or her life transformed as Scott Harrison did. For many, active engagement in the needs and challenges of society will simply be a rewarding new element in a life that's already busy and productive. For others, it will bring new meaning to an existence that may have felt humdrum and uninspired. But for everyone who chooses to contribute in ways large or small, there will be the satisfaction of knowing that their gift to the community can have a multiplying effect, giving hope to others and helping to spread the enlivening spirit of shared citizenship throughout our entire society. Once again, you got to do something. Any questions?
Loie and Stephen.
You get a microphone.
Sounds weird. You talk a lot about partnership and the importance of not only focusing on yourself and your personal gain, but through a common goal. Was there a specific experience or a moment that made you value the importance of partnerships for you? Was there like a moment that you worked with someone else or someone did something for you?
It wasn't one moment. It's just the reality that you can't do it by yourself. That no human organism can accomplish something by themselves. You can run a marathon by yourself, or you can maybe win a gold medal in some sport by yourself, but that's not the core of human existence. Is that we are born to work with others. And I guess maybe the clarifying moment was when I had an opportunity to start giving speeches on the subject, as I mentioned a moment ago, and coming to the realization that so much more can be accomplished by working together, by creating these partnerships, by understanding these partnerships, by having a real sense of what you can do and accomplish. And then the parallel universes of my thought process, and then being on the Tufts board, and life is you can plan all you want, but who knows how it's going to turn out. And people interact at various times, and you're all Tufts students, then you're going to go different places and you'll do different things, but at least you'll have this moment together where you got to learn about what it means to work in partnerships. And no matter what you do, you will fall back on your education as a student at Tufts University taking classes at Tisch College. Now, the opportunity for me to endow the work was unique. I mean, when we talked about this 15 years ago at a board meeting, I didn't know that 12 years later there would be an opportunity to endow Tisch College, or to take what had been started and call it Tisch College. But all the stars were aligned and the pieces came together. And so here we are today sitting in the classroom, John Tisch at Tisch College, and talking to Tisch students. But it's all a question of partnerships and working together. It always goes back to that.
What do you consider to be your greatest leadership success and your greatest leadership failure?
Probably the success has been after the creation of Tisch College, which I do consider something that I am extremely proud of. The success on a business front has been educating our elected officials about the significant economic and social contributions that the travel and tourism industry makes to this country. For decades, our industry was ignored. We were ridiculed. We were, as we used to say, the Rodney Dangerfield of businesses. Nobody appreciated us. And I would sit in meetings, mainly on the hotel side, but then I'd look at the airlines, and I'd look at the connected retail industry, and I'd look at restaurants, and I'd say to myself, you're talking about millions and millions of people who make a living in this industry. And you go to Capitol Hill, and they wouldn't get it. They had no concept that we were one industry. Now, our challenge was that we needed to speak with one voice. And that's what I'm proud of, is that through a lot of hard work, of cajoling, of arm twisting, that we got our industry to speak with one voice. So now when I walk into people's offices on Capitol Hill, the staffers, because they do all the work anyway, say, oh, well, 17 million people make a living in the travel and tourism industry. This notion, this bill that I briefly mentioned, called the Travel Promotion Act, will allow us to set up a discussion of how to bring more people from international destinations to this country. And you get more visitors, then we can create more jobs, and then when you create more jobs, more money in taxes. So it's a very important discussion. So I am very proud of what we've accomplished in terms of the travel and tourism industry. In terms of the family, I'm very proud of what my siblings and my cousins have accomplished, and the fact that we are still together as one family. If you look at other families around the country that have access to some wealth, they haven't done it so well, and they haven't stayed together as one group. And I'm not saying that we have to walk single file, all believing in the same mission, but everybody does something, and they are there to support what they think is important to them and their spouses and their children. So I'm very proud of us as a family for what we do. And through that, we have people that are dedicated to education and AIDS and the arts and hospitals and travel and tourism, and that's very rewarding. In terms of failure, I get frustrated on a business side that we're not larger than we are, and I think that we historically missed some opportunities, although today it's probably better to have less hotels than more hotels because our business is still extremely challenged. And in terms of what a challenge might be in the pro bono world, it's not spreading the message sooner and to shouting it from the hilltops about how important all this is. But I think we're certainly catching up to that. So I've been very fortunate, and I keep doing more. And the books and the TV show have been tremendous personal accomplishments that I am very proud of. And I have, fortunately, I have a great family and a wife who supports me in these endeavors. Duncan?
Well, first, I just want to say what an honor it is to meet you, and there's really no way for us to thank you for all that you've done in our own careers, and then also what you've done for Tufts. So, thank you.
Thank you.
But I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about your time at WBZ, and you're obviously doing something, at least in your professional life, that's radically different from that, and what that experience meant from you and how you transitioned out of it.
When I started my senior year at Tufts was September of 1975, and my brother, who graduated from here in 71, had already been in LA for about 3 years and starting his career as today now a very successful movie producer. Our family had a little bit of exposure to the world of entertainment because at that time we owned Lowe's Theaters, which we no longer own. And for those of you from the Northeast know the Lowe's movie theater chain. So my father would come home and he'd bring, on a weekly basis, he'd bring home Variety, and I would read that. And I had access to a lot of people in the entertainment world, so I wanted to pursue a career in TV. I got this internship at WBZ, and I walked into an office. It was September of 75, and I had no idea what they were going to have me do. And it was a full-time 3 or 4 day a week internship, and I was getting credit through the Tisch College. And they said, okay, you go work on this show. It's a public affairs show. And the show is called Action 4, and it was one of these weekly shows. It was sort of the WBZ version of 60 Minutes, which had just started to try to get some change in the community and bring up interesting people and interesting situations. And I befriended one of the producers who also was the cameraman, who to this day now, 30 some odd years later, is still one of my closest friends. And he taught me how to shoot film, because in those days there was no videotape, how to shoot film and how to edit film. And then about a year later, videotape started to come in, and how to shoot videotape and edit videotape, to the point where by the time I was getting ready to graduate, I was producing my own spots on the show, and then they offered me this full-time job. And I spent 3 years there as a cinematographer-producer, and I produced public affairs, sports, and children's shows. I was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, local Emmy Awards. I didn't win either one, unfortunately. And then I made a decision in August of 79 that I wanted to move back to New York and go back into Lowe's Corporation, the family business. And having grown up in hotels, as I mentioned earlier, was something that I wanted to do. Now, to your point about how that 3.5 years of my life, or 4 years including the time as a Tufts student, to what I do today may seem very different. May is the optimal word, because I discussed this at lunch also. To you seniors that I didn't give this mini lecture to at lunch, don't be frustrated if you can't find a job in an industry that you are passionate about right now. Because I am, and I apologize to those of you that I'm repeating myself, I am a big believer that anything that you do in life will help you later on. And you don't know how it's going to happen, you don't know where it's going to happen, but every interaction, every human experience will help you at some point in your life. I promise you. So you may not get the perfect job. You may, which is beneficial and certainly in line with Tisch College, you may go into the pro bono world for a while. You will learn something, and I guarantee you it will benefit you. And you're not going to know how or why. Now I'm going to tell you why. When I started to work in the hotel business, and I started as a sales rep in January of 1980, I would knock on people's doors and I would try to get them to book hotel rooms. And then eventually I went into development, then I became president, and now co-chairman of the board of the parent company. But what I developed was a keen sense of the fact that the hotel business is just another form of the entertainment industry. And what we're doing is we're providing a stage for people to put on their own shows. And your own show is why you're going to a hotel. As I said earlier, you may be with your family or your kids. The show is that you're on vacation. Or you may be there on a business trip, and the show is that you're there to go to a meeting. So we're another form of the entertainment industry. And the edits of what the hotel looks like, what the rooms look like, what the attitude of the co-workers are, those are the edits. I learned about putting on a show and editing while I was at WBZ. All I'm doing now as the CEO is editing your experience as a hotel guest. And my edits are different than Izzy Sharp's edits at Four Seasons or Fritz Van Passion, who's the CEO of Starwood. Our edits are all different, but we're just putting on a show. And I learned that, and I was able to refine that thinking because I was a cinematographer producer, and I was responsible for taking an image, shoot this bottle, and put it on TV, and then edit it to make it interesting. So that's how the past can help you in the future. You don't know how it's going to happen, you don't know why it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. Jake.
Thanks. By the way, I recently stayed in the Lowe's in Nashville and had a great experience.
Good. You were the one that was there last week.
Yes.
No, that's a good thing. We need business. We don't have too many Jakes staying at our hotels these days.
I'm curious about the dynamics of your, I guess, relationship with the CEOs of the other competing companies in your industry, because obviously, especially with government relations, you've been able to work together, and that's obviously a theme of your book. But then I imagine at the end of the day, you go back to your office and try to, beat each other up.
Absolutely.
And I'm just curious, like, with that, in terms of your personal relationships, how that works and what sort of skills you've been able to develop to keep a healthy relationship like that.
What I've discovered is that when you work with them on the issues that benefit everybody, you have the ability to create relationships that go above trying to beat each other up. It's just given that we try to beat each other up. But what has to be worked at is the goal to accomplish more than just the day-to-day drive as much to the bottom line as you can. I was at a dinner on Tuesday night honoring Bill Marriott, who, even though we have nothing in common politically, he is, he's a Mormon, he's very, very conservative, viewed as the main Democrat in the travel industry. And so we don't have anything in common. He's in great shape, he's 70 years old, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. And yet I find him to be one individual that I respect probably more than anybody in the lodging industry because of his accomplishments, because of how he treats his coworkers, because of the respect that he shows other people. And there were a couple other CEOs in the room, and I said to some of the people I was sitting with that in our industry, the CEOs put that notion of trying to get that last dollar aside on many occasions because we do like each other, we do respect each other, and I think that's true in a lot of businesses. Yes, we want that group to stay with us instead of staying in a Marriott. But that said, the respect that I have for these men and women as individuals overrides my commitment, doesn't override it, but stands side by side my commitment to make Lowe's Hotels as profitable as we can. And if you understand this notion of partnering with your competitors, no matter what business you go into, you'll be able to do that. When there's a group called the Campus Compact that Rob is very involved with and President Bacow is involved in, and once again, it's a bunch of university presidents that this time of year, as kids are looking and filling in their applications and for early decision, they got to be in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, this is a business also. It's a place where we educate the future leaders of our society, but it's a business. President Bacow's got budgets. He's got constraints of dollars, especially in this world. He's got endowments that are underwater. He's got to deal with the faculty. He's got to deal with the administration. He's got to deal with the workers. He's got to deal with all of you, the students. He's got to deal with a lot of different groups. He is the CEO of a business, and he's got challenges as the president of Harvard or the president of Amherst. They all have challenges and they may be competitors, but when they get together to talk about issues that are important to higher education, they put those aside for the moment to talk about the greater good. That's the place that you've got to get to. And it's not just about the boss. One of the biggest challenges of leadership today is ensuring that there's buy-in for your vision. It is really hard. And that means that any organization, it's just the nature of the beast, any organization is a pyramid. And you can talk about flat organizations. Somebody's got to be in charge. There is a boss. It's just the reality. And there's an executive director, there's a president, there's a CEO, there are senior executives. The challenge is that as you sit around and talk about the vision, how do you ensure that the people in the next rung down, the people in the next rung down, the people in the next rung down, how do I know that the housekeeper has the same vision for her success at Lowe's Hotels that I have for the entire organization? That is a challenge of leadership. And the most well-run organizations, the most successful organizations, are able to get that vision down into the trenches and ensure that there's buy-in at every level. And that is not easy. And yet, still at the top, when you're dealing with your other CEOs, you might want to put them out of business, but if you can respect them for what they've accomplished, it goes a long way.
I can't resist a follow-up question, John, in your experience, how do you go about effectively ensuring buy-in for your vision? And particularly in the kind of example you gave.
It's constant communication with the people that report to you. And then if you are at the top, reminding yourself, and this is also not easy, that you've got to get in the trenches every once in a while so that people can see that you're real and they can touch you and feel you and know that you may be the boss, but that you're also human. And it's more the role of junior and middle management to ensure that buy-in than I can't do it every day because I'm not the room service manager. I'm not the front office manager. I'm not the pool manager. Those are mid-level management positions where they're responsible for 20, 30, 40, 50 people. They're the ones that clearly have to understand this. So the middle of the organization has to really have a sense of what you're trying to create. And it's incumbent upon, yes, I'm the CEO, and I've got my chief operating officer, and I've got my chief financial officer. We discuss it as a group, and then they've got to go make it happen. And so you've got to, once again, surround yourself with people that can help you deliver that message. I know what I'm good at. I also know what I'm not good at. And you can be damn sure that the areas that I'm not good at, I surround myself with good people. In the back.
My name is Terry, and I really enjoy reading your book. And
thank you.
Throughout reading your book, I could realize the importance of understanding the customers and put ourselves in their shoes to kind of get to know their feeling. But I also see that there can be some cases where conflicts can occur, and that could block the partnership of Concrete We. So, I in my perspective, just as having good partnership with people is important. I think also overcoming challenges that block concrete partnership is also equally important. So, do you have any know-hows or strategies to overcome the conflicts or the factors that block the concrete we that you talked about?
It's a good question because under the heading of stuff happens, and you can enter a partnership with all the best intentions. And the partnership may be to build something together, to buy something together, to create something. But stuff happens. And you have to enter these partnerships with also a sense of how you're going to get out of them if they don't work. And one of the things that my cousins and I learned from our father and uncle was that you should protect your downside and give a little up on the upside. So always know what your worst case scenario is. Always know what's going to happen if something doesn't work out as you planned, because sure enough, something's going to go wrong. It's just the nature of our lives. Stuff happens. And in an industry that is so dependent on service and such a big part of the service sector economy like lodging or travel, stuff always happens. You know, there's a storm, and so thousands of people get stranded at Kennedy. People can't get into a hotel. There's a blackout. There's terrible weather. The housekeeper doesn't make up the room because they're too overwhelmed. Stuff's going to happen. But as I say to our people, it's not so much about the problem, it's about the recovery. What did you do to fix the ill will that has been created with your customer or your coworker? The recovery is vitally important. So knowing how you can get out of things once you've created a partnership, knowing what your downside is, minimizing your downside, minimizing your risk, and coming up with solutions go a long way to, I think, answering your question. I hope. Dean?
I know you talked about this a little bit at the lunch, but in kind of your vision for Tisch College, and especially us who are involved in it in this class and through other means, kind of how do you see us, or what kind of, I guess, ideas you have for us and to be the actors for change and kind of promoting active citizenship and civic engagement?
Once again, I don't mean to be repetitive for the few like Dean that were here earlier, but you're in a unique position because you're at the epicenter, you're at the core, you are at the sort of molten lava of this moment in time called active citizenship. And you're at the core because Tisch College is now looked at and respected as the brainchild of a lot of this movement. Yes, other colleges do very good things. Other hotel companies are very involved in the community. It's not just about Lowe's Hotels. But the inspiration for a lot of what is being done now in other corners of the country and around the world, as was witnessed 2 weeks ago at this lunch, comes from Tisch College. So the fact that you will get your diploma soon, in May in your case, and it will say Tufts University, makes you an ambassador of being an active citizen. And incumbent upon that, I'm going to lay some Jewish guilt on you. It makes you even more responsible to do your job when you leave Medford, Massachusetts, because you're here where this idea was birthed. And I think that's exciting, but it's also comes with responsibility. And somebody asked earlier, what would my vision, what's my hope for Tisch College, is that we create so many more active citizens, but they're being created on an education that started here in Medford, Massachusetts at Tisch College.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to push you a little bit further on that same question. Well, the example that you gave of Scott Harrison, and like clearly you are an entrepreneur yourself, but as students, I mean, I don't think I'm necessarily an entrepreneur, and I don't necessarily see myself going and starting a business or even a social business or, you know, starting a nonprofit or going that direction. And more realistically, I can see myself as part of like the junior middle management in the next coming years as, you know, a 21-year-old. I'm not going to get to the point of, you know, the head of anything for at least, you know, 10 years. So being from that perspective, like how do we maintain our active citizenship imperatives if we're going to be in these junior positions? Like, I mean, I can understand finding an organization where the CEO has a vision and you agree with that vision and, you know, helping out in that way. But beyond just doing that, do you have any other advice on, as we move forward as young people now?
What's your major?
Community health and IR.
Okay. So you are spending your time here at Tufts learning how to work in the community as it relates to the health needs of a neighborhood. So you'll graduate and you're going to look for a job, and hopefully you'll find one in the area that you studied. So let's say you go work for a community-based organization, and I know this is a big issue in Somerville, that you're going to start focusing on childhood obesity. I'm just using that as an example because I know it's big in Somerville. So you get into this organization and you start working with these kids, these high school kids, junior high school kids that have eating issues. And you're one person, and hopefully you'll find one boy or girl who's 15 and overweight. You're going to make a difference in that person's life. You will make a difference. The fact that you have taken your education and that you have taken the time in this career that you hopefully will do very well at, and maybe in 10 years you will be running your own community or health-based organization. That's how you make a difference. It's not about, yes, thank God there are Scott Harrisons in the world that got tired of serving some model booze out of a $350 bottle of vodka, and that he has taken this movement. But there are always going to be Scott Harrisons. But there's always going to be you, and you're going to make a difference. And you don't know that in 10 years you're not the next Scott Harrison. You don't know that. What's to say that you don't start working this organization and you get inspired, and that you have a chance to partner with somebody who is going to say, let's start our organization. You don't know that. So what you need to do is go in there and take care of yourself first and foremost, make sure that you are doing things in an appropriate manner, find people to work with, and change one person's life, and your education will be worthwhile. Okay.
Hi. So if you don't mind, I want to ask a more personal question, because I'm hearing this, and I mean, your work and your corporation and all the social responsibility you explained in the book is like the epitome of what we want kids to leave college with and shoot for. But I'm more interested about like the personal empowerment and personal level. For you, at like such a great level of leadership and 7 million people under your wing, like when does it stop, or does it stop, or do you get family vacations, and when are you able to like to breathe and look back and be like, gosh, it's okay, running the gears, they're doing good, and like on the personal level, how do you survive at such a strong level of leadership and entrepreneurship?
Well, as my wife and kids know, I never stop, and that's just my own craziness. That's just how I'm wired. And look, 10 years ago, I could have, when I was 45 instead of 55, I had a very good life, and I could have sailed off into the sunset and taken vacations and go to the south of France. But it's just not what interests me. Yeah, I want to spend time with my family, and I've got 2 boys that are 16 and 18 and a half, and I now have a 6-year-old stepdaughter. So I've got responsibilities to them. I've got responsibilities to my wife and my family. But as I mentioned earlier, I've got a very supportive partner who understands what I want to accomplish. And I just keep pushing myself to do more. Because when people say to me, here you are, you're part of this family, and your family's accomplished a lot, and you got a few dollars, and you've written checks to places like Tufts, and our family supports NYU and Brown and Duke and all these institutions of higher education. What really excites you about your life? If I may add that to your question. And the answer is the opportunity to do different things. When you have options in your life, to me, that's a successful life. It's not about what you can wear or where you live or cars or anything. It's opportunity to do things that are important to the community and to yourself. And I didn't need to write 1 book. I didn't need to write 2 books. I didn't need to write a 3rd book. I didn't need to do a TV show. But to have the chance to share my views, which are my views, you put a book out, nobody's got to buy it. But nobody's got to watch your TV show. But to share with people is what keeps pushing me. I did stand-up comedy last week at Caroline's Comedy Club. Now, that is a recipe for suicide. And I give speeches all the time. I can stand up in front of 10,000 people. Stand-up comedy, I guarantee you, is very different. And I did it, and I was practicing, and I was at a Lowe's meeting that we had all day in Washington. I flew back to New York. I had to rehearse part of it because I sang a song, which is really stupid. And I did it because it's a great experience, and I can do those kinds of things and know that my business is still running. That's another piece of this, is that depending on, surrounding yourself with good people, is that I'm sitting here in Medford, Massachusetts, but I know that there are some senior managers back in New York making sure that when I get back into the office tomorrow, that Lowe's Hotels will be in as good a shape tomorrow as it was today, as it was yesterday. So the chance to really push and do more is what I enjoy. Do I take vacations? Yeah, I go away. Do I ever not return emails instantaneously? No. And obviously we can all comment on the technology of the day and whether it helps us, hurts us, makes us antisocial, makes us crazed because we're bombarded with information. I do not have a Facebook page personally because I think that it's just people would come after me that I don't necessarily want to deal with. I do have a Facebook page through Lowe's, and I will be setting one up for the book, and we will tweet and do all that kind of stuff. I do write a blog for the Huffington Post, and people can communicate that way. But I work hard, but I also expect a lot from the people that I surround myself with, and it's what I get excited about. So maybe I'm missing the fact that I don't go away as much, but it's my wife and I know what to expect from each other, and she's an amazing partner and helps me through this journey. Shannon has a question.
Thank you for coming here today and speaking to us. So you just talked about a lot of the different things that you do: stand-up comedy, TV shows, books, running a business. What's the goal? What are you striving for? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years?
The goal is really what I've discussed earlier, is being able to help others get to a very fortunate place where I find myself. Is that through the hard work of my family, initially with my father and uncle and their spouses, and now with my cousins, siblings, that we are extremely fortunate. We are very, very lucky people. Who knows why whoever makes these decisions picked Bob and Larry Tisch to accomplish this success, but they did it, and we're here today thanks to what they created. And I just want to be able to share that with other people. And if I can, through some thinking, I don't sleep very well, so if I'm lying in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and I can think of a theme for a book, and then some people might buy it and read it, and the TV show is to, you could say it's to satisfy my ego, but yeah, that's okay. We're all allowed to have an ego. And yet through that, if I can help others get to a similar place, that's my goal.
As a follow-up, do you have any stand-up jokes that you might be able to share?
Oh boy, it's sort of like my Haftorah. I forgot it the minute I was done. It went in one, I had it here, I memorized my whole routine. I think by 4 o'clock in the morning it was out of my head. So,
I've got a great idea for your fourth book. It's an anthology of humor about active citizenship. For those of us who are not natural stand-up comics. I'll buy many copies.
Thank you. I'm expecting you to buy many copies of Citizen U, put it on the curriculum of next year's students. Hint, hint.
It's a deal. What kind? Can we talk discounts?
Absolutely. Anything else?
Let's go back to our discussion initiators and give you guys the last questions.
I just wanted to thank you for coming. And recently I Googled you. That's weird. Whatever.
Anything bad?
No, not
Okay.
at all, actually. And I read an article, and I believe it was in the Daily, and you told an anecdote about how you came back to Tufts and one of your favorite professors was sitting in a speech that you gave, Saul Gittleman,
It's all good.
I believe.
Of course.
And you opened the forum to questions, and he raised his hand and said A-.
Mm-hmm.
And
sounds about right. Surprised he didn't say D-.
Well, I would give you the same grade. Or
Thank
higher.
you.
But it seems that you gained a lot from Tufts, obviously, and it's a place that you value deeply. What do you hope for us as students here to gain from Tufts?
In a word, one word, opportunity. And I think that Tufts gave me the opportunity on many levels to pursue my interests. And when it became apparent to me that I wasn't wild about going to class this senior year, I'm not giving any of you any ideas that you probably don't have already, but they gave me the opportunity to pursue an interest in entertainment that was the realization that I had picked, now 3 years later as a senior, that I'd picked the right university for me. I've been on the board of trustees for 18 years. I am currently co-chairman of the Capital Campaign. I have worked with 4 university presidents through my 18 years and a little bit before I started on the board. And it is no secret that I am an enormous fan of Larry Backow. I think he is one of the finest people that I have ever met in my life. And I think Tufts is, for the past 7 years, has been very fortunate to have him as the boss here. But I think that when I see the growth of this institution from when I started here in 1972 to where it is today, and to be part of that discussion is extremely rewarding. But it goes back to the word, and I think that this university does this better than most, and it's the word is opportunity. And you have great opportunities being students at Tufts.
Stephen.
Thanks also for coming today. In The Power of We, one of your Tish's tips asks, does your organization make a conscious effort to stay abreast of cultural, economic, and social trends that may affect your customers? And I was wondering, how is Lowe's responding and adapting to our current economic climate?
Very appropriate question. I mentioned a little bit how we're responding to the social needs because we've got Facebook pages now and Twitter and trying to best utilize the world of social networking to bring us more customers. And we're responding to this enormous challenge in travel and tourism by sadly having to let some of our colleagues go because the business levels just aren't there. We're responding in a way that we are always doing guest surveys to make sure if we're cutting back on a service that we're not cutting into the core of what we've tried to create at Lowe's Hotels. And if you look at the challenges that we have, broaden it out a little bit, and some of the larger chains, especially at the high end, are having real challenges because we'll get out of this economic mess, but I'm telling you, and I've been speaking about this a lot, I can't tell you what the hotel industry is going to look like a year from now or 2 years from now. I think we're bumping along the bottom now. I worry that the stock market has run ahead of the general business climate, and with the Dow at 10,000, that may be a false or leading indicator. And my concern for the industry is what will the new normal look like? Will people still want to travel? Is the consumer so beat up by 10% official unemployment, which means 16 or 7% unofficial unemployment? Are they so beat up because their 401k has been shredded, they don't know what their house is worth, their husband, wife, kids may be out of work? Are they so beat up that it's going to take them years to go back to a normal travel pattern? So the changes that we're making now in terms of maybe saying that instead of automatic turn down service where 7 o'clock the housekeeper comes in and turns down your bed and gives you fresh towels, now you need to do that on demand, on request. So you'd have to call downstairs and say, I'm in room 412, could I get some fresh towels? So we'll stop that to save money and save some jobs. But where and when are we going to be putting these things back in when business comes back to what we once knew as normal? And will 2 years ago normal be what we're looking at going forward? So these changes and cuts in service have to be very well thought out. Now, Lowe's Hotels is only one of the various subsidiaries of Lowe's Corporation. So we do the same thing in other businesses, but Lowe's Hotels is the only service sector business. And when you're in the service sector, people have the ultimate power, and that ultimate power is to go to one of your competitors. So when you make these changes, you've got to be very careful to see what the future impact may be.
John, thank you for your support. Thank you for your active citizenship, and thank you for taking the time today to share your experience and your vision with this group.
This has been very enjoyable. Thank you. And good luck to all of you.
We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we will reconvene.
Thank you all.
If some of you would like to have your copy of The Power of We
Yep.
autographed by the author, you can do that during the break.
Let me know.
That'd be great. Thanks. Thank you. That's terrific.
Thank you.